My name is Ruth Rugenyi. I am a third born in a family of 6. My dad passed on like 12 years ago. My dad worked with agriculture, and my mom was a teacher. So basically, we make fun of this at home because we were all born in different places. So because my dad used to move around so many times, and we make fun of the number of schools we've attended. I was in 3 high schools. First high school, I couldn't fit in. I was the smallest, I was so tiny, I just didn't fit. Moved into the second high school. I fit in very well. Of course, initially there was some bullying, but I was small but dangerous. So I tried to just, fit in. But then I failed gloriously. When I finished my high school at 17 and had to repeat again for another 2 years. And so I was in a third school. So at this point in life, I didn't know anything about mental health. I mean, who knew about mental health those days? Nobody, But then looking back, I always had ADHD, And until 32, that's when it was diagnosed. Completed high school, and I had all the admission letters, At least I had a good combination. So I had a letter to do medicine, I had a letter to do actuarial science, accounting, but I loved maths. So I chose to do actuarial science, and I did actuarial science first year, second year, and in my second year I started failing gloriously. I got bored, and when my dad passed on at that time, my world crashed. And one day I just woke up on my way to school. I was in JKUAT, initially in Westlands, then went to main campus, and I just alighted the matatu at Kawaskari and called my mom and was like, "Mom, I quit school." And I didn't know what I wanted. I wanted to do a business, I wanted to be an air hostess, I wanted to be anything at that time. Changed now, went to Meru, Kenya Methodist University, did my diploma in clinical medicine, community health and surgery. And initially, everything was fine, Actually, I used to do extra units until I got bored again. And the people who we were with, of course, graduated before me. And I was out for a year while they were doing the internship. And during that time, I had my other things. I worked for a marketing company, those things that you don't put in your CV anyway. But I thrived. I was there, and it was it. And I did my internship at Mbagathi in 2014. And yes, I'm a mother of 2 lovely boys. Did I say that? Yes, they're 6 and 4. And at that point, I got my firstborn in 2014. Got my first job after my internship in 2015. And got now my second job again in 2017. Well, my journey began in 2016 when I was expecting my second baby. We had like 4 robberies. So the last one was very traumatic. We had thieves in our homes at night. They stayed in the whole night, they ate, they showered, they changed. It was very traumatic. So to say, prison break kind of stuff in the morning when you guys want to go loose. And I was raped. But then I didn't get the support I really needed, because of course the first place you go to is the GVRC center. And by the help of neighbors, family, well-wishers, we were supported. But then after that, you put on your strong face and you move on with your life, yeah? Baby came, stayed for my maternity, and I had to change the environment. So I had to move now to, that time I was staying in Nakuru, so I moved now to Nairobi. And I started my job. And initially it was okay. So that's 2017. But I started struggling. I had constant headaches. And these headaches and back pains began in 2015, 2016 also. They were worse. And of course, you'd say maybe it's a pregnancy, after delivery. So the headaches were too persistent. the backaches, the chest pains, the fatigue, feeling hopeless, and just thinking maybe it's just burnout from work. And the first diagnosis was made in 2017. And I remember I was given some drugs and I had to travel to Loitoktok for my best friend's wedding. And I did not travel because I took the meds. And I slept, like literally, for 48 hours. And when I woke up, I just threw the meds in my dustbin. I was like, you know what? I don't look like depression. I mean, I'm a medic. It's not for me. It's, you know, I can cope. I can do anything else. And I started struggling at work. I could work even day and night. I would not meet deadlines. I kept aloof. I still had my headaches. This time, you know, you have a small child, it's just life. It's just normal life for you. But I was really, really struggling. To the point of I almost even lost my job at one point. But deep down, I felt like one day I need to talk about my story because I didn't really get help after my incidents. So I would share it maybe with my inner circle, and they tell me, you know what, first you need to get help, you need to heal first. Maybe you can talk about it. Etc. My performance at work went down, my relationships with people went down, like everything was on a downward trend. So, but every attempt by even my colleagues, maybe to go for therapy, even my boss one time told me, you know what, you need to go, and I kept on dodging. You know, I became what? I mean, again, these are skills I'd learned from boarding school in 10 years. You know how to survive, yeah? So you have lies here, like, okay, I can't go today because of this and this and this. And every time I would come to work very anxious, I would cry, I would probably have a lot going on. So this was until 2018, it was pathetic. Let me just say that. And still again, I did not get help because I kept on dodging my friends, dodging my colleagues. But I thank God because I had colleagues who saw my struggle, and colleagues who were medics, and colleagues who I would say intentionally became my friends, because of course the nature is you want to keep to yourself, so you push people away. Okay, so it was very intentional for them to just be there and push and force their space for me to get there. So 2019 January, I was rock bottom. But again, I was really masking it. But this time, I remember one day I was coming from off duty and was having severe headache, splitting headache. I mean, you've been off for several days, and now the day you're supposed to go back, I remember I'd gone off for 6 days. The day I'm supposed to go back to work, I'm not able to wake up. I had insomnia. The whole day I had splitting headache. I didn't want to hear even any single slight noise. Then because I had insomnia, I had trouble waking up in the morning. So I passed by the hospital, but now the doctor, we had created some rapport. And I'm back again, but this time round, of course I'm smiling. And I tell them, you know, doc, I want to quit my job. In fact, I have a biashara I want to do with a plan to sell mandazis and snacks to people with profit margins. And I knew I would make money, even maybe probably. I had a plan. And I wanted to quit my job at that point. So when you were talking like that, I'm like, by the way, doc, I have a boil here and somewhere, but then I'm like, by the way, doc, again, I would interrupt. And it's like, but these scars saved my life. And he picked up that story. And he told me, you know what, you're more than, I can treat you. I mean, your CRPs have always been high, but I think now this problem is beyond me. You should see a psychologist. CRPs are inflammatory markers. Basically, when you're sick, when you do a full blood count and you do the inflammatory markers, just to show how, like, your condition And the most surprising thing, I used to do MRIs, I've done x-rays, I've done, like your back is okay. So I was always on muscle relaxants, your bacterial infections, hauna, no viral infections. But there is something that is showing that there is something totally wrong with you, but we could not pick it up. And it was just shortly after that I went to the doctor, my regular doctor. And I really thank that doctor because he called a psychologist, because I was like, the psychologist, no, he's not in the panel. The excuse is I don't have money. But he intentionally made sure he called the psychologist, gave the psychologist my number, gave me at least some drugs for me to relax. And he made sure that I was able to secure an appointment for the following day. So I went there, saw my psychologist, and here I am now with the psychologist. And I do my evaluations very nicely. And I had a diagnosis of severe depression, severe anxiety disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder, that is PTSD. And the most amazing part of it is that at that point, my issue on CRPs being very high was sorted because my evaluation showed that my body was immunosuppressed for a period of 10 years. My body had a low immunity. So I would succumb into illnesses. But every time I would go to hospital, they would not find what is the issue. Okay, so all along it was a mental health issue. Before I went to see the psychologist, of course, remember I was pushed, and I think it's just because I had this rapport with the doctor and maybe some kidogo respect, and I really needed, if this would sort my headache issue, then I was ready. But again, deep down in my mind, and being a medic myself, I always felt like, it's on the other side. It can be me. Like, it doesn't look like this, and I'm always smiling. I'm always happy. Even when I'm not happy, I'm really good at masking it. I always say I don't have to look how I feel. So it was a moment of I don't know. That first diagnosis was a low moment and a relief at the same time, because one, it explained to me why I was suffering, but it was a low moment because I didn't want to take medication. We discussed, which doctor do you want to see? I'm like, okay, I'll check, and he wrote for me a referral letter. But shock on you, I went and kept my referral letter. January was done. February, I was doing really bad. And my friend and my colleague, remember I told you, they had to intentionally be my friends. So I really owe her, because I pushed her from being my friend, but she insisted on being my friend. And she saw I was struggling. And because we work on shifts, she called me and said, you have to go to hospital and I will work on your behalf. It was very irritating. She was stubborn. I literally switched off my phones on her. I literally hung up on her. I literally had all kind of lies, okay? And shut, like total shutdown. Actually, she was like, you know what? If you don't go to hospital, yes, you're going to lose your job. And I told her, I don't need my job, I have papers. I have papers. If I lose my job, I'll get another job. And she said, no, you're keeping this job. And I'm like, okay, I'll go after my shift. And she said, no, I'm coming to work for you, and you go to hospital. So she showed up to work. And I had no option. She showed up to work and drove me to Dr. Frank Jenga's office. And at that point, I'm like, I'm not going to see Dr. Frank Jenga. No, he's very tough. And she was like, yes, you're very stubborn. You can only match up with someone who is able to match up. I was like, okay, that's what you want. I won't resist. So I went and saw the doctor. And the most interesting part about this is 5 minutes in the office, I had a diagnosis of ADHD, that is attention deficit hypersensitivity disorder. And that is something I had all along, and it really made sense. But the diagnosis, I remember he asked me, how do you feel about this diagnosis? And I told him, excited. And he asked me why. I told him because it explains so much. It explains why I was always in trouble in school, why like I would lose interest in everything, you know. And my journey began. I was put on medication, of course for the depression only at that time, and the anxiety, and psychotherapy. So I had to be now on 2 psychotherapists, at least for the depression and the PTSD, and for the ADHD, so that at least I would be able to cope. But then again, took my drugs, I think a month, and I was feeling so good. I was feeling superb, you know. I stopped taking my medication. I would skip my therapies, and again, I'd come up so well, even at work. Again, I started going down again. You see, the people you're with around, your employer, the people, your friends, they get tired, you know. And the sad part is that people see you're struggling, and instead of holding your hand, they dig your grave. They dig for they help you to dig it, because when there are people you'd expect when they know you have a diagnosis, like for example colleagues, for example friends, family, they'll support you. Okay, and so to speak, when you're in the medical profession and you think like people are medics, they would understand, but you'll be surprised. Even medics who don't deal with mental health don't understand, and that's why we have misdiagnosis. That's why I've always been in and out of hospitals trying to look for solutions, and I did not get a solution until I got to a physician who connected the dot between my physical health and my mental health. And that was the end. No headaches, no backaches. That was it. So I started deteriorating again, going down, going under. But again, remember, at least in all of them, you still have that one person. I was lucky. I had that one person who still held my hand, who still pulled me, who still did all that. And when I was hitting rock bottom, I know for sure, and I can say without fear, I was losing my job. I did not even understand, you know. Sometimes I sit down and think, sometimes I even forget how it is to feel those days, because it was like, I would say autopilot. You wake up, you know, do this like a robot, yeah? This is what you're expected to do. But again, people with ADHD are not neurotypicals, meaning there's no normal brain. Let's call a neurotypical brain, because I don't think there's a normal brain. So having executive functioning disorder and staying with neurotypicals, and they're expecting you to do things in a certain way, and they confine you into a certain way, and you have depression and you have anxiety and you have all that going on. It was not easy. It was not so easy. So again, when I hit rock bottom again, they're the same friends who held my hand, and I was admitted in hospital. Again, I didn't want to be admitted in hospital. But then it was 1 day, 2 days, 28 days. But that was a life changer for me. So me being admitted in Chiramo for what I thought would be 3 days to 28 days changed my life completely. And that's why I'm here talking about my story, because I do not want anyone else to ever suffer, because there is always help beyond there. And that has been my journey. Slow, steady, still a work in progress. Sometimes I still shut people off, but at least what I know and what has worked for me is acceptance. I don't stigmatize myself. Number 2 is having a close, a support system. For me, my friends have become my family, My friends have become my family, and my family is so supportive. So supportive. And that has been it. When they know I'm hitting rock bottom before I even know I'm hitting rock bottom. And the consistency in medication, taking medication, therapy has really, really worked. Why do I talk about my story? Back in 2017, remember I said I wanted to talk about my story, because remember, after going through a very traumatic event, I would go on Google, I would try to check, even on YouTube, like there was nowhere, I didn't know, and I kept wondering. I'm in the medical field, I'm in the insurance industry. This is how I get shunned when I go to a facility, and this is it. What about that small girl, that woman back in the village, that man out there who'd not know, like, where do I get help? And if they got the block, like the barrier, they would not push, because I'm a go-getter. So, and I knew I really needed to get help. But remember, I didn't do my therapy, because again, there's no follow-up. So I just did the basics, took my drugs, etc., and that was it. And I was up smiling. So now, 2018, I really want to talk about this story. I want to share. I'm here with a plan. I want to open an NGO, etc. I have a whole plan. So I sit down with a relative, and I knew she would help me in the process of maybe the business part. And she told me, you know what, Wamboi, you can only share your story when you've healed. And that's what my therapist had told me. But I thought I had healed. But she told me, no, you need to heal. But again, I saw the therapist after, now when she told me this, yeah? So again, talking about your story is a journey. It is still a journey even now. The way I told my story last year, this year, tomorrow, it's not the same, If I would have done this a few years ago, when I was still not even a quarter way on my journey, it would not have been easy. So I encourage everyone, take your time, heal. Then when you're at a point where at least you've healed and you've come to a recognition of exactly who I am or who you are, you really know what you want. It will not be an impulsive decision. You'll have the strength, because again, it comes with a stigma. You'll have the coping mechanisms, okay? And you'll be able, at least even to help others with the mechanisms on how to cope. So it's a journey, and it's work in progress. And again, the fact that you talk, it has introduced me to so many people. It has introduced me to other small, community level services, okay? It has brought me to other support groups. So I have a support group in Chiromo, I have a support group in Nakuru, and there are other people talking about mental health, and this is it. But the moment you break your therapy, that's when like, you start getting into maybe triggers, and you're not able to cope normally. And yes, if I did not seek help at that time, if I did not have someone who literally dragged me and held my hand even when I walked away, and if I did not have that support system, and if I did not get to the level of, yes, this is who I am, self-acceptance, no self-stigmatization, yeah, I would have lost my job. Yes, years later, I still have my job, same job. And I'm doing very well in my job. And at least now even the people around me, even my colleagues, even the managers, they know I have this because I talk about it. And when I'm at my best, they know the potential I have. And when I'm at my worst, they give me the support I need. Okay? At least when you talk about it, and when they don't give me the support I need, I still fight, because something I've learned and something that I want everyone to know out there. If today you really want to fight and stay there, compromise your mental health, you will die. But if you take care of your mental health, you'll keep that job, you'll perform well at work. Let me tell you, organizational level, there is stigma and there is discrimination. Let me talk about discrimination. I have the potential, okay? But they've put a label on you. And they'll discriminate even the duties that they give you based on your diagnosis. But if you let people define you, you will not live to your full potential. There is support, and there's a lot of non-support. Equal measure. Sadly, a lot of non-support. And you know, the sad part is that people will say, oh, we'll always be here for you. But they just say they won't do it. They won't do it. So you want to go for your sessions, and you've scheduled your sessions, but now you can't go for your sessions because you have, there's someone who is like, no, this is a priority first. And my question is, if I'm not well mentally, how will I perform? If I'm not well, who will take care of my kids? If I'm not well, how will I make money? So I come first, I talk about it, and if I'm not feeling well, I do not fear. It is about my mental health first. Stigma starts with, if you stigmatize yourself first, you're allowing others to stigmatize you. If you keep quiet, you allow the stigma to win. And what I would tell people in their workplaces, don't fear, open, talk. They'll discriminate you, they'll stigmatize you. When you're your best self, it is about the results. It's about being you. And by the way, you get to a level of you know what you want in life, And if that job does not define you, what other people say does not define you. If they discriminate you in terms of responsibilities, it has not limited you. You can still have your abilities and you can still work on them. But as long as you find a lot of, when you have the fulfillment in life, that is it. And for me, my current fulfillment right now is when I talk about my mental health, even at work. Let me tell you, every person I meet, I'll always tell them, every other person, even at work, I'll tell them, you know what, and we pick this conversation. And funny enough, everyone is now warming up to it. So yes, how you deal with it, you deal with it first, talk about it, and don't fear. There's something called mental health and rights. We have rights. You cannot be fired on grounds of your mental health. It's illegal. It is illegal. I ask people, and I want to ask this question, and I want to pose this. If today I came and I was given a diagnosis of diabetes, and I was given insulin, and I was given a sindano, and every day I have to keep, would I receive the stigma I receive because I'm going for my antidepressants? No, there's no stigma. Again, I have ADHD. You know what that means? I'm a Ferrari on the road and you're a Vitz. It's only that I have a poor braking system. So we start the road, I go. I get to the corner, I have a poor braking system, your Vitz coming. But now I'm on treatment, I'm on psychotherapy, I understand my condition. So I'm already doing my estimation. That's a corner, this is how I need to navigate, and you know, there's no comparison. So again, we are geniuses, we come with our potential, but don't let people define you. What works for me basically is a lot of self-care and self-love. So I've learned to love myself. I've learned to love my flaws. I've learned to love my imperfection. And when I have burnout, I'm able to understand, like, this is how I'm feeling, and I know how it's going to be. So for me, my psychologist and my doctors are always on speed dial. That is number one. Number two, I have support groups everywhere. Always take time out. Take a walk. Discover that hobby. Rediscover yourself. Yeah? People think self-care, you have to go to Mombasa. You don't need to go to Mombasa. Self-care is you getting out of that bed, sitting on the grass outside. You remove your shoes and enjoy the sun, and listen to the birds and enjoy the fresh air without being disturbed. If it's a book that works for you, keep that moment where you can go to the library, get a book. If it is water that works for you, go to the pool. Basically, that is what works for me. And because I get bored easily, I'm always looking for the next hobby. So if I'm tired of skipping the rope, tomorrow I'll try swimming, but at least the exercises, the activities have really, really worked for me. And another thing that has worked for me is that my doctor is my friend. Actually, my doctor is a parent to me. If I don't have money, I'd walk in and tell them, you know what, I don't have money. I need to be here. I mean, even if I'm not going for therapy and I was passing by, I'll just walk in and say, I was just saying hi. That relationship you have, they'll always pick and they'll guide you. I'm saying this because sometimes even the way you choose your job, like now until my diagnosis, I actually now know what can work for me in terms of a job and what cannot work for me in terms of a job. Okay? And that is because my doctor is my friend, my therapist is my friend, and now we know this is your personality, these are your strengths, these are these. So even when I'm applying for a job, literally, I come and tell my doctor, Doc, there's this job. And they'll tell me, you know what, that job, no, we'll admit you in a month. You'll be super bored, it will not be challenging enough for you, you know. But this kind of job or this kind of job, go for it. And that is what has really, really worked for me. Again, my family, my mom, my siblings, and my 2 boys, they give me a reason every day to wake up and grind, every day. What I'm encouraging people out there is to know that mental health is not that person who's picking up papers out there, you know. It's that person who suits up every day. It's that person who looks very nice every day. It's that person who smiles every day. It's that person who masks their depression behind. It is that kid who is always in trouble. It is that adult who is always late. Those small things. But mental health, actually on the outside, is beautiful. But the struggle inside is what is mental health. It's not a broken leg, but it is the battle within. How do we come out of that battle within? Simple. Tufunguke, tuongee kuhusu mental health.